When I was younger, I used to hate waking up early. I mean, I really didn't like waking up early. Fast forward a few years later when I was studying for my degree at university, and for those 3 years, I used to wake up at 4:45 AM every single morning, even on weekends, completely by choice. I wanted to wake up early because I realized how much of a positive impact it had on my life. And throughout university, that one thing, just waking up at 4:45 AM every morning, was one of the most impactful and overall healthiest things I could have done. And so this is how I did it. I think most people go about it backwards. They want to wake up at 4 AM or 5 AM or whatever time, so then they set their alarm clock for that time. But then when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, they're still feeling really tired, so they hit the snooze button or they just cancel the alarm and continue sleeping. So instead of doing it that way, I reversed it and I set my alarm clock at the time I wanted to go to bed. I would wake up at 4:45 AM, so I'd want to be in bed by 9 PM the night before, so I'd be asleep by just before 10 PM. So that's a good 7 hours sleep. And doing it that way, when my alarm went off at 4:45, because I just had 7 hours of sleep, it was actually really easy to wake up. In fact, usually I'd wake up naturally 15 or 20 minutes before my alarm clock went off because my body was rested enough and it knew that it was time to wake up. And consistency is also a huge deal here. My body got used to waking up at 4:45 AM every morning, so I'd wake up energized and not tired or lethargic because I woke up at 4:45 every single morning and I'd be asleep by 10 PM every single night, even on weekends. And I knew that even if I missed one day or went to sleep late at like 1 or 2 AM, my sleeping pattern would be messed up for the next few days or even weeks to come. So I was really disciplined in making sure that I got my 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And I don't know about you, but everyone is different. But for me, if I don't get my 7 to 8 hours of sleep, then I'd probably be feeling very tired and lethargic the following day. And another point, if you're struggling with your sleeping pattern, and let's say you usually wake up most mornings at 11 AM or 12 or even early afternoon, and you want to start waking up early, it's best to do it gradually over a period of a week or so. So one night wake up at 11 AM, then the next day wake up at 10, then the next night an hour later. If you try to fix your sleeping pattern in one night and say you normally wake up at 11 AM, but the next morning you try to wake up at 5 AM, it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's why a lot of people fail with doing it this way. And if you're still struggling to wake up early and you keep hitting the snooze button, one thing that works well for me is if I set my alarm clock on loud and then put it downstairs or in the kitchen or in another room or even just the other side of the room, that way when the alarm goes off in the morning, I have to physically get out of bed to turn it off. So it forces me to get out of bed whether I want to or not. And if I need to dramatically change my sleeping pattern, I will spread it out over a couple of weeks. And this is often the case when I travel. I'm in a completely different time zone. So for example, if I want to start waking up at 5 AM, I would start waking up at 8 AM for a few nights. Then my body starts getting used to waking up at 8 AM. I'd then start waking up at 7 AM for a few nights, and I'd slowly work myself down to 5 AM over a period of a couple of weeks. You see, it's really easy to wake up extremely early, even 3 or 4 AM if you wanted to, providing that two things happen. Firstly, you go to sleep and you wake up at the same time every day. That means no cheat days, so 7 days a week, even on weekends. And that way your body will get used to it, and so naturally you will wake up after having 7 or 8 hours of sleep. And the second thing is that you need to be disciplined with your sleep schedule, at least for the first couple of weeks. So that means if you need to be in bed by 10 PM at night time, you make sure you're in bed by 10 PM. I think we've all been in that situation where the time we sleep starts creeping later and later, then you start waking up later and later, and before you know it, it's afternoon before you naturally wake up. So it will take 2 or 3 weeks of being really disciplined and making sure that you go to sleep on time. But after a few weeks, your body will get used to it and you'll form a habit, and once that habit is formed, it will be a lot easier. It will almost become automatic, so you don't even need to think about it. Another thing that was incredibly important was that I had a nighttime routine. I've noticed that there are two things that if I do them before I sleep, I won't be able to sleep for hours and I'll be lying in bed awake until 3 or 4 in the morning. And the first one is exercise, particularly cardiovascular exercise such as running. If I go for a run 1 hour before I sleep, there's no way I'm going to fall asleep. Maybe it's because of the chemicals and hormones like adrenaline that are released into the body during the run, I don't know, but going for a run before I sleep is a bad idea. And the second thing is watching YouTube. I've noticed that if I watch YouTube in bed before I sleep, it stimulates my brain to the point where there are so many ideas and thoughts rushing around my mind that I just can't relax and go to sleep. So I found a good substitution for watching YouTube before bed is either reading or even just watching Netflix. So watching a film or documentary is far more relaxing than watching YouTube videos, at least for me. For you, you might close your eyes and listen to a podcast, some light meditation, or filling in a nightly journal might be a better option for you. And it's worth mentioning, waking up early is not for everyone. Some people are early birds and some are night owls. I have friends that no matter how much they try, they're just not productive in the morning. And an article by medical physician Ian Crows from Stanford University in 2016 stated that whether you can concentrate better early in the morning or whether you can concentrate better at night up until 2 or 3 in the morning is largely up to biological and genetic factors. And I'd say I'm definitely more of an early bird than a night owl, so waking up at 4:45 is incredibly beneficial for me. I realized I was more productive because most other people were sleeping, so I could get more done without being distracted. I could drive to university earlier than everyone else, therefore beating the morning rush hour traffic, which would add an extra 20 minutes to my commute. I felt happier and more motivated and healthier, and actually, there was a study in 2008 at the University of North Texas that found that students that woke up earlier, or students that classed themselves as morning people, had an average GPA that was a full point higher than students that classed themselves as night owls. So the early birds received a 3.5 GPA on average, whereas the night owls achieved a 2.5 GPA. And I talked about the benefits that I experienced waking up at 4:45 AM, but I talk about them all in the past tense. And that's because these days, and for the last year or so since moving to Vietnam, I've been waking up at 9 AM rather than 4:45. So I've kind of been promoting this idea of waking up early, but then I go ahead and tell you that now I wake up at 9 AM. So why is that? Well, the main reason is because I'm currently living in Vietnam. However, I'm from the UK and a lot of my work still involves people and clients in the UK, and there's a 6-hour time difference. So often I'll be on a phone call or Zoom call at 1 or 2 in the morning in Vietnam. So some nights I sleep at 3 AM, which I have to because of work, then it messes up my sleeping pattern and then I struggle to wake up at 4:45 AM. I did it when I first moved to Vietnam, but some nights I had no choice but to sleep at 1 or 2 in the morning, and then forcing myself to wake up after just 3 hours of sleep, it just wouldn't have worked long term. But I go into far more detail about my sleeping pattern at university because it really was almost a revolutionary discovery. I mean, the benefits on my life just from waking up earlier really were significant. I talk more in depth about sleeping patterns and waking up early and my experiences and lessons I learned at university in the Transform Your Grades course that I recently launched. The course really has just one goal. I created it to help support you to boost your grade level by at least 2 grade points. So if you're currently studying at a D grade, then the course will help you push towards studying at a B grade by the end of the 30 days. Now, it's not a magic fix, you still need to put in a lot of work, but I support you throughout the transformation and I even offer one-on-one support and counselling. You can click on the link in the description below for more information, and I look forward to working with you very shortly.